Now that should work. So I do something like this, right? I leave that there, and then I put this here. It's supposed to work. Hopefully.
Maybe because it needs to be the three of us, it should be in
the middle, something like that. Okay, the way it's done is very simple. It was unfair for you to do a breakdown on what I said to you that was very simple. So what you did on a basic report was you shrunk something very simple. You used the sublime to the ridiculous, and you reduced something. You did a shrink on something very basic that didn't need to be shrunk.
Right.
So I shrunk your shrunk. You did a breakdown on what I said, and I broke down your breakdown, and now it can't be broken down any further. So there is no in between an interpretation. Now I did this in the form of an email, and did you get the email I sent?
Yes, I think the email was passed on, yes.
That was the mediation presentation.
Right. Okay, so do you want me to respond to that?
Well, I've got it in. I've got it 60 points, and I've got it. All the points that was sent to you in written form, on an email, and each form there was an explanatory commentary on each point, and that was an audio.
Right.
So if you don't have it now, you can call it up on your computer.
I haven't listened to any audio. We don't take audio tapes and things like that as part of the process when you need to write.
Well, no, it's an open process. Right. It's very informal. Right. And now I'm going to have to go through.
I think the problem is it's difficult to understand the audio, really. That's what we were told. It was difficult to make.
It wasn't. I did an MP3.
Right.
An MP3 means I used up around 3 times as much megabytes because the quality is perfect.
Right.
And I listened to it each time before I sent it. Anyhow,
I think the point about the data that was sent was that that's just the raw data on the diagnoses of patients within the trust of various conditions.
And what was the actual? What was the description come from?
It comes from the computer. It's just a description from the computer.
No, the actual
data computer.
You know the way you have something like BSIA standard, and that's one description or accepted standard for looking at something. What was the standard of those mental illnesses that it came from? What standards did you use?
The standard that's used in making diagnoses, conventionally it's accepted, is what's called the 10th edition of the International Classification of Diseases.
Okay, I have no clue about that. But yours was mental health.
It's the 10th edition of the International Classification of Diseases, which includes both physical and mental health diagnoses.
Well, homelessness was amongst one of them. How is that a disease?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure why that put it in there. It may be a descriptor that's in the international classification. It may be just another factor that was included in the presentation in addition to the diagnoses. But it isn't really a medical diagnosis, as you say. It's
okay. Anyhow, I'm looking now. I have to go to my paperwork because if you look on the email, you will get a written account on the email broken down into points of the criticisms I have of your response, and on top of that you'll have an audio commentary in each of those, and that was my presentation. I expected you to bring that here with you today, or to access it.
Well, I'm happy to respond to the concerns that you had. I mean, I am familiar with your concerns, so I mean.
Well, what I need is.
The whole idea of this meeting is to kind of try and resolve any outstanding issues. I don't think we're planning to change the report in any way. But maybe if we explain things more fully to you, it might make more sense to you. Maybe.
Might make more sense to me. Okay, the only way I could get to this mediation from Susie Payne was if I did a written critique of your response. Now, the written critique I did of your response was too basic. I had to back up what I said, so I had to explain it.
Right.
So I put it forward, an email, each bit in 5 parts. 5 points of critique, and then there'd be 5 audio files fully explaining each point.
Right.
Did you listen to the audio?
No, I didn't get the audios, I only got the email.
You didn't get the audio?
Yeah.
I sent by chance, I guessed your email account, because Susie Payne is susiepayne.wlmht. So I just put in anthonyjolly.wlmht.
It's not my account.
Well, anyway, it was worth a try.
Right.
Anyway, I told Susie Payne to forward it to you, and I
Right.
believe she did.
I didn't get a whole series of audios. Did you get audios? No. We got the written concerns, but audios we haven't got.
Okay, I need to know various things. This is a load of nonsense. I'm going to have to read through this thing now and be stupid. And Dr. Karashi, let's see, is this the right one? This is terrible. This is the Maudsley report. Oh, this is bloody terrible. How do you live with all these reports? Here's one. Terrible.
It could be good if we could try and focus down on the issues you want to raise, really.
I already done that on a mediation presentation. A mediation presentation that I spent a week putting together to cut down the time. So you'd look at the points,
Right.
and then in your earpiece you get an audio commentary.
Do you want me to respond then to some of the concerns that
I want you
raised?
to respond to the whole mediation
Right.
presentation.
Right. Well, I haven't got any audios to respond to. But
You
I
do,
can
because they're
respond.
included in the email. You know in the email,
I've got audios.
do you know in the email when you got all the points, there were 64 points, but did you look at the email?
I looked at the email, yes.
Do you know the bit at the bottom, the 5 points at the bottom? Well, you know the bits at the top, the little squares, and beside it there's like a music symbol.
I don't think that came through on it. Did
They
you see
wouldn't come
that?
through.
No, I did not.
They couldn't have got deleted in the email because they're part and parcel of the email. The only way they could get deleted,
It might have, when it was forwarded, it might have been.
it wouldn't have been deleted when it was forwarded.
Well, I don't recall that at all.
Okay, can I use that computer there?
No, I don't think we can't really do that at the moment. I haven't got my card to get access to it at the moment.
Just because you're a professor and you can't, you
But what
pretend
we
you're,
can do is go through your concerns.
you're a professor who knows better than the Maudsley, and now all of a sudden you came down in the last shower. Okay, it's called being stupid to be smart. That's what crooks usually do.
I mean, presumably you've got concerns you want to raise. Maybe if I could respond to the concerns that you raised, and we could have some kind of dialogue about things, really. Because I know you were concerned about the dual diagnosis, about having two diagnoses, for example.
Yeah, there is no dual diagnosis.
Right.
There is one diagnosis, there's Maudsley. I would like for you to explain to me how you're not happy with the Maudsley.
Right. Well, the Maudsley only met you once, I think, didn't they? Or they didn't
Yeah.
for one, and I think the doctors that have been looking after you here have been looking after you for many years, and they had access to all your medical records. The Maudsley Hospital seems to have made a decision based upon, one contact with you plus talking with a worker who said that you've never experienced any hallucinations, which was actually incorrect. So I think they jumped to a conclusion rather too hastily, frankly. That's what we think.
Okay, I have a number on this. Okay.
And unfortunately, the Maudsley Hospital made their decision about your diagnosis without any access to your medical records.
There's various things around there. I did this all in my presentation. Why haven't you got access to my mediation presentation?
I've seen your emails.
Yes, will you
but I
respond? The audios are included.
Right. I'm not familiar with any audio.
I am not familiar with any audio either.
Okay, I need to know two things.
Right.
Your name is Doctor. You're 60, you've been working here for 40 years. You've been working here since 1983, correct?
1980,
One?
80, I think.
1980, alright. That's not 43 years. What is that? That's 33 years. And you had around 10 years experience before you got your toolbox.
No, that was all of my experience, really, including, I was a trainee here, so...
Oh, you were a trainee here as well? I thought you train up to the age of 30 and then you can go out into a hospital or something.
Yeah, well, it can be...
I'm mixing it up with
Start
the
working in
apprenticeship.
hospitals a bit younger than that, really, in their 20s.
Okay.
But
So
maybe we could, it seems to me that the issues...
how come we never see you here? Do you diagnose patients that come in here and you?
Yes, we do, yes.
Yeah, but you singular.
Yes,
You do it singularly.
sometimes, yes.
Sometimes, okay. What do you do at the moment? At the moment, what is your job title?
I work in two teams. One is the early intervention in psychosis team, and the other one is the Hammersmith and Fulham assessment team. So in the assessment team, I do general psychiatric assessments.
Okay.
And in the first episode, psychosis team, we deal with new cases of psychotic illnesses.
Okay, when you do the psychosis teams, did you set up these teams?
I did, yes.
So that means that you're an overall policy maker.
Well, in small measure, yes, you could say that.
Okay, so you set up the policy. Okay, so you're a policy maker, which means the criticism of policy is something you have to deal with. Okay, I still can't find the thing I'm looking for. This is absolutely terrible. I came in here with a written mediation and a...
Where is it then?
It's on the computer if I can access it.
You didn't come in with it, if it's on the computer.
Well, I came in with it, I came in with it sent to you,
Right.
or whatever. It doesn't mean...
I don't know whether it might be sensible to maybe, make another time with...
No, it isn't, because I want to get this...
if we can find
I want to get this mediation out.
You can make it another time and
Oh, you have the audio.
find these audios.
I can send it to you later on today.
Right.
Is there any point of having any discussion today about the diagnosis?
There is a big point. What is your name?
My name?
Komfki or something?
Sorry, I'm Sofia Primaki. I'm the acting service manager here in Hammersmith and Fulham.
Okay, when you're here now, you're here as part of this complaint, in dealing
Well,
with
I'm
the
part of
complaint.
the mediation process.
Yeah.
I've been asked to attend.
So I have to attend in front of a panel. So you're not here to analyse me in any way.
It's not part of
No,
any
it's not,
treatment or
it's
anything.
not part of the treatment,
It's just
it's
really to
treatment.
deal with your concerns, really. Because you raise concerns about the report, so it was a chance for you to kind of describe them and discuss,
That's
and for
right.
us to respond to the concerns that you raised. And the concerns that, as I understood it, were to do with your unhappiness about us making a diagnosis of schizophrenia as well as one of Asperger's syndrome. And also you had some concerns particularly about the data that was produced from the computer, that it underrepresented the number of people that might potentially have a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome in Hammersmith and Fulham.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I think the person who gave you the statistics gave you the wrong statistics. And the reason I think that, oh Jesus, this is very, very simple. The reason I think it is that only 40 cases or 60 cases of autism for the whole of this part of London. Now this part of London is
I'm sure there are many more, but they're the only ones known to the Trust. They're the ones that are known to the Trust. Most people with Asperger's syndrome don't necessarily have any contact with mental health services.
Well, no, that's autistic in general. Well, here, I don't understand it.
Yeah, many.
Absolutely disgusting.
Most of the services for people with Asperger's syndrome and autism are in the voluntary sector. So that they're not necessarily going to have contact with mental health.
Can I ask a question? Do you know why people bleat with a type of empathy, as if I hear your pain, but real empathy means you do something about it? So they bleat as if they hear your pain and there's a problem, and then of course the joke, because they don't do anything. Okay, here goes. Various things. Number one, a social worker put me into a place where he said, I heard voices. Now, I tricked him, the manager of the place, a year later, to give me a copy of something he tried to make me sign, to say I hear voices. In this bit here, he's trying to get me to say I hear voices. Now, at the end bit was a signature. There was a problem, I refused to sign it, and I ran off with a piece of paper. Why have you got staff lying about saying we hear voices when we don't?
I don't know, I can only go by the record really. I wasn't there, and I suppose I have to. This is a record from a separate service, this is
It
a
is,
mental health
but
service
Pathways
record.
is keying in
Yeah.
to housing, and you get the information. You can't help what you do, because you can only do the information you're provided.
That's right, yeah.
Now the information is
That's always
unreliable.
the problem in looking back many years to things, you know.
No, the problem is basically companies like Pathways earn their money off up in the categorisation, and you should take that into account when somebody's in front of you. Pathways, by the way, Pathways is just named for move-on accommodation. It's just a council label for how they house people.
You're saying that they pushed you or maybe falsely declared that you were hearing voices because they could get more money or something from your
I don't know what
case.
the motivation was, but I've been trying to ram it down my throat for years. Look, there's the line saying I hear voices. This bit here, look.
No, you didn't hear it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a nonsense here about buying a bike. And he said it was to sign a receipt.
Right.
But, and at the very end,
The trouble with this is, you see, I don't know when you wrote this and so on.
I didn't
when you
write
wrote
it.
this commentary.
The actual typing.
This commentary of
Oh, I just did that a week ago. A week ago.
Yeah.
I've sent it out to someone.
The trouble is, you know, I mean, if we were to,
There's no signature at the end.
if you just said,
sign
you know,
it.
I mean, the trouble is, you see, if we work by that logic, we could say, oh, if you just said, oh, I've never had a mental illness, I've never had any symptoms, we just have to then erase the entire record and say there's never anything wrong with you, it was all a big mistake. But unfortunately the record shows that you were reported to experience all kinds of symptoms in the past which would be consistent with the diagnosis of schizophrenia. The thing is, schizophrenia is not a type of person, it's an illness, it comes and goes. One of the things I mentioned in the report is that, you know, you may be very well in many ways now and not have those symptoms anymore. It's not a kind of person, you know. Maybe that's a problem from the past, perhaps at the moment. But we can't simply erase the record and say you didn't have those symptoms when they're all reported in the notes.
Okay, as part of a care plan agreement, my GP has to be copied into it so she knows what's going on.
Yes, that's what should happen, really.
And there's no such thing as her being copied in late when she demands it.
Well, I suppose that can happen if the paperwork hasn't gone out in time. You know.
Well, there's no such thing as years later she asks if they send it to her and it's okay. Here I have a copy of my GP not being copied in, and you can read the various bits of handwriting. And there's the GP. That's an illegal care plan agreement. And they're saying the GP is responsible for illegality because it isn't.
This is a fax cover sheet. Yeah.
Yes. He forgot that the fax was scanned. He thought that just the care plan went in computer. But the fax cover sheet was scanned and went on top of the care plan. And there's the illegal care
fax
plan.
from your care coordinator to the GP saying that no letter was sent out regarding the care program on the 8th of November 2011. And he's enclosed the care plan.
Okay.
That's what it's a fax cover sheet. Yeah.
Okay. What he's done is everything that they were doing wrong, I couldn't prove to my GP they were doing wrong because they had to tell the GP what they were doing, and they weren't sending the GP a copy. So I got the GP to get a copy of my care plan.
You should have got a copy directly, really.
I never did.
Right.
That's all covered there. You can read all this nonsense if you want. The stuff that's in green writing.
That's a care plan here now, so...
It's an illegal care plan.
Right.
Because Dr. Qureshi said I heard voices in, 2010, September, and Nicola Wakem was there, and she can verify I never said I heard voices. And a copy of that care plan session or meeting with my doctor would go to my GP. She never sent a copy because it was a lie.
Yeah. The care plan doesn't really consist of details. The care plan doesn't really consist of details of symptoms, really. It's not the right document for that. Care plans really are there for detailing the interventions that are being made by the service. So they were not necessarily going to contain information at all about symptoms of psychosis or otherwise, really.
Okay.
There aren't any descriptions of any such symptoms here. It's really what the care plan talks about is the interventions that are being provided to you by the service. And that's listing them here, really. And who's responsible and what the hopes are that might be achieved from those interventions.
I'm included on that. Anyhow, these care plan agreements that we go to periodically aren't simply interventions. We have to be there periodically, and we have to do it by law. So I don't know if it's debatable, it's just what the law states.
Okay.
All a load of nonsense. And number 3, you got this in the form of a spreadsheet. Now,
That's the information that you sent you, is it?
that is the information that you sent me.
Right.
This is IC, it's 2012, it's up to date.
Right.
Now,
It's the last year, really. It's the what we got asked them to send you was the breakdown of all the different diagnoses that were made by the trust in the last year, because your complaint said that everybody was diagnosed as suffering from schizophrenia.
too many. Okay, it's 2 or 3 different things. It's 2 or 3
The
different.
idea was to show you that there were a range of different kinds of diagnoses that were made.
Okay, there's various things. You got simple schizophrenia. There couldn't be 21 in that must be a mistake, but 7. Simple schizophrenia, is that even legal to diagnose that?
It's still a category within the 10th edition of the International Classification of Diseases.
But using
It's one that, there's a kind of reluctance to make that diagnosis.
Yeah, I think, is it not illegal to make
It's not
it?
illegal,
No,
no.
but like, it usually call it slow burning schizophrenia.
No, that's slightly different.
But I mean, a subtle difference, but basically the same.
Slow burning is not a term I recognise in any classification, but not a term I use either, to be honest. But,
Yeah, it's not a Western.
I'm not sure if it's quite the same. I think it probably, slow burning has the connotation of insidious onset. Really.
No, that's not it. It was used in Russia
Right, I don't know that term really.
as an excuse for locking people up. Anyhow, you've got schizophrenia, and then you got paranoid schizophrenia. 1,500 there. I don't know what the hell you have here. All of this you got around 1,600, and all the other types. So, and then you got the mental health, blah blah blah. So you got 1,500.
Anxiety, lots of problems. Really.
Yeah. Okay, let's say you got 3,000. Now that area, is that for everybody that goes from Lily Road to North Acton to Feltham?
It's everything in the whole of local services, which is the London boroughs of Hounslow, Hammersmith and Fulham and Ealing.
Okay, then alright. So that's 3,000 cases of schizophrenia. Oh, this is terrible. Here it is. The total number of autism, childhood autism, are those children with autism?
Yes, the Trust provides services for children as well.
Okay then, okay. Now, is that not picked up in education?
Well, commonly is,
sometimes,
yes.
Okay, so that's why there's only 14 here.
Well, most people with autism and Asperger's syndrome are not dealt with by mental health services.
Okay.
They're dealt with by the voluntary sector.
Okay. People that are adults with mental health, they weren't really
by
looking...
GPs, not everybody comes to the mental health service.
Okay. People with mental health, they weren't really looking out for it in the 70s or the 80s, that are my age.
No, that's true. And it's certainly true that, people are more aware of the possibility of a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome now than they were maybe even 10 years ago.
It's not Asperger's, it's autism in general.
Autism in general.
There's atypical
Yes,
autism,
that's
there's
quite safe.
Asperger's, there's childhood and all the rest of it. Now the question is as follows. Autism in the autistic spectrum is supposed to be nearly half of 1% of the population.
All you're seeing there is the cases that the Trust see. I'm not saying that's not a reliable indicator of the population prevalence of those conditions.
That's all the Trust sees. Now, in the adult population, schizophrenia is slightly less. There's 3,000 cases of schizophrenia, and there's only around 40 cases of autism.
Yeah, that's because the main business of the Trust is dealing with major mental illnesses like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and depression and so on. Autism and Asperger's syndrome and so on, and things that mostly the voluntary sector provides support with.
The voluntary sector.
Because they're not really seen as mental illness. I mean, Asperger's syndrome isn't a mental illness; it's a developmental disorder, really.
Okay, so if you got people...
I know it's classified in the international classifications. It's seen as a developmental problem, and it's not something that the trust has a big role in providing for, and most of the work, most of the provision for things like autism and Asperger's syndrome is in fact, in social services and local, in the voluntary sector and so on. For example, there's an Asperger's service, an autism Asperger's service available at in Ladbroke Grove, which is a voluntary sector organisation, which to people that have, get referred to for support regarding their.
And would that not be counted under WLMHT?
No, because it's a voluntary organisation.
It's a voluntary organisation. I'm with the National.
It's not part of the National Health Service.
Okay.
But it's not. It doesn't cost to be involved. It's a voluntary organisation.
If you're
a range of bodies, it's a free service. It's not something that they charge for.
Okay, so if you're looking out for autism in adulthood, and you've been doing it for the last 20 years, how come you got 3,000 paranoid schizophrenia and you've only got 30 autism?
That's because most people with autism, as I say, don't come to mental health services. They come, they go through their GPs. They use voluntary sector organisations for services.
Do you think it's possible that people with schizophrenia, seen as diagnosed with schizophrenia, could be diagnosed with schizophrenia when they actually have autism, considering that a single diagnosis of autism?
There is a possibility of that, yes.
If that's a possibility,
and I'm sure mistakes have been made.
If that's a possibility,
principally in relation to the diagnosis of what's called simple schizophrenia, where there are not, the kind of phenomena that one sees in the other kinds of schizophrenia, where the diagnosis is a bit softer, if you like. And you were saying about, isn't this diagnosis simple schizophrenia illegal? Well, it is a diagnosis that we slightly frown upon and we discourage, really, because the evidence base for making a diagnosis of that type is limited. You have to make very subjective kind of judgments and so on. You don't see the hard phenomena of psychosis. And I'm sure that there are quite a few people who've got labels of simple schizophrenia who may have had Asperger's syndrome or other kinds of autism, or may still even today, maybe. But I think in your case there seem to be other kinds of symptoms as well, which are a bit more hard-edged type symptoms, which did warrant the diagnosis of schizophrenia. But as I say, it's not a permanent condition or a kind of person. We're talking about an illness which can come and go. So because you had those kinds of symptoms in the past doesn't mean you have them now. But we can't just simply wipe out the past and say that it didn't happen, because the symptoms are not recurring now.
Okay. You made it based on admission number 1 to the hospital. How come admission number 1 is missing?
The summary is not missing. I think the first admission to a hospital was when the hospital had paper notes, didn't have a computerised notes. And I asked the people to find the paper notes, and they couldn't find the paper notes. So we had to go. They couldn't find all of them. They found some of the paper notes. They found the community paper notes, but not the inpatient paper notes. And so we had to rely on the summary of that admission, of the admissions, that was in the paper, in the community paper notes. But those summaries explain, the process of what happened when you were in hospital, and the symptoms that you experienced at the time, and so on.
Oh, okay, it's all very interesting. What I'd really like to know is the actual mediation. For me to be here, I just can't come here on a limb and start mouthing off to you like this.
Right.
I have to give you a mediation presentation with commentary on the mediation presentation. Now, I've done that all in advance, and I put a lot of work into it, and I thought it was unfair for me to have to do that. Now,
I think we've produced a report, and we're willing to discuss it, and if you want to raise, it seemed to me they were the main issues that you raised.
Well, this is the report.
Yeah, the main
That's
issues.
for the response.
Yeah. The main issues that you raised in your response, meeting, was the issue about the dual diagnosis issue, and it was the issue about the prevalence of autism amongst the diagnosis, in the trust. And I suppose what I'm trying to do is to give you some explanation of those two things.
Okay, what is your job title as a doctor as regards the head of these departments? What is it?
I'm a consultant psychiatrist.
Yeah, but your policy maker over the psychosis teams and the recovery teams.
I'm the consultant psychiatrist for the early intervention and psychosis team here. Yeah.
Okay, could you look into the fact that a lot of people with schizophrenia I'm talking to now seem to say that they have a personality disorder. In the ebb and the flow of things, have you ebbed and flowed a load of people with schizophrenia and recategorised them in the last few years as personality disorder?
No, I wouldn't think so. No, not that. No.
No, so in order to prove that, I'd need these stats on the spreadsheet to go back 10 years.
These are all questions that I think are extraneous to your treatment.
It is. I've only got 20 minutes left. And see what I'm doing is I'm letting you talk all the talk. And now I'm going to go through this nonsense.
These things are a bit extraneous.
Okay, I need just one reassurance off you before I leave.
For your complaint.
Just one reassurance. Right. Susie Payne is supposed to have sent you an email. The emails...
She sent me emails from you. Yeah.
Have.
And I have seen the emails.
Been put together with the written points, and at the very top they have audio commentary. The audio commentary was supposed to do in advance what I'm doing now, because that way it would help you do your research and you take on board the audio commentary that was a critique of your response and listen to that and say as to why or not that audio commentary holds up.
Right.
Are you willing to look at my mediation presentation?
I'm not sure that we can. I mean, I can have a look to see if I've got any audios that I can listen to. I'm not sure that we've got the technology to listen to audios, but we can have a look at.
Yes, you do actually. Right. If you have a computer, you've got the earphone jacks in them.
Right. It depends on how much time is involved. It may take some time. I don't have a lot of time to do that. But I can have a look and see what how long are the audios?
Each point, the length of the audio is usually identified at the side. I don't know. It's 25 megabytes. It's something like 15 minutes.
All right. Well, that's not bad.
Yeah.
But I suppose I'm not sure we're going to get any further than we have today.
Okay, we'll go through the points there. Okay, point number 1, second hospital admission. Why is the first hospital admission missing?
I don't know. Well, there is a record of that admission. There's no. I couldn't see a summary of that admission. The paper notes of the inpatient care you received are not available. They seem to have got.
Okay, they're not available. I'll cut that. Okay. This point here. It feels I might have fulfilled the criteria for diagnosis of schizophrenia.
Who said that? Sorry.
It is noted that during your second hospital admission, it would appear that you might have fulfilled the criteria. Might having fulfilled the criteria for a diagnosis is guessing a diagnosis. Do you just guess a diagnosis?
No. The reason I put it tentatively like that was because, as well as there being criteria in terms of types of symptoms, there are also criteria for the duration of symptoms. Okay, so what was not clear from the summary was the duration of the symptom experience. So I tried to err on the side of being cautious and not say that it was definitely warranted a diagnosis of schizophrenia, because there weren't the criteria there for the duration. I mean, it wasn't possible to ascertain it because we didn't have the paper notes reporting your day-to-day symptoms during the time of your statement. We had a summary of the admission, and there was no point during the summary did it state how long you had the symptoms for, how long they were there for, a week, a day, a month, that sort of thing. So that's why we left it very tentative.
Okay, I'm not even going to respond to that because you're talking too much. The initial diagnosis matches the prescription, right? The same prescription I was on for nearly 10 years from the initial diagnosis. Now that prescription was for schizophrenia. So if that was from day 1 of an initial diagnosis on first admission,
entirely reasonable diagnosis.
It means that initially they had me down as schizophrenic.
They didn't initially, no.
They just gave me prescription
for type of personality initially, didn't they? I think it says that in the report.
I don't know. You said it was missing. Okay.
That's what the discussion in the summary states, that the earlier diagnosis was one of schizotypal personality, and then they changed their view to one of you having a diagnosis of schizophrenia on the basis of how they saw things when you were in hospital.
Okay. I says I usual perfunctory and delusional ideas that I expressed with Dr. Qureshi on the 16th of December, in which he notes, he said he hears voices in his head and he's convinced others can hear and read his thoughts too. He said the voices are so loud that it is sure that they can be heard next door via the wall, the voices in my head. Now at that particular meeting, Nicola Wakem was present, and she'll vouch that I've never said I've heard voices, let alone thought I heard voices in my head, but it's so loud the guy next door can hear.
That's the verbatim account of Dr. Qureshi in your notes.
Could you argue that the reason she didn't copy Dr. Jarvis into that particular account is because if she did, I would have shown it to my community support worker and she would have said that's nonsense?
Well, I think I have to take the word of Dr. Qureshi over your support worker, because Dr. Qureshi is a psychiatrist.
Ask her why she didn't
and an
copy.
expert in dealing with these matters.
Okay, if you look at this, and this is actually embarrassing doing this for the consultant. This is why I wanted my community support worker to do it. You will look that is the 14th of the 2nd, the first time she's been copied in, and my GP was copied out for something like 2 years. Could you argue the only reason she was copied in is because I talked about it, she demanded it. Could you argue that the reason she wasn't copied in was because they were putting down a load of nonsense and they knew Jarvis would catch them out?
I don't think that's likely, really. I mean, there's no evidence.
Well, first of all, it's twofold. That's a type of forensic thing. First of all, there's verbatim Nicola's word against Qureshi.
Yeah.
Which means that you believe Qureshi instead of Nicola.
Yes, I do.
Then secondly, it's just people talking, and one person's talk means more than another. In other words, believe Qureshi. But then how come she never copied in Jarvis? That's illegal. One thing going on. One thing going on once.
Do the CPA.
You can't even give you a pass on ignoring Nicola. But two things happening at the same time.
Yeah.
It's doubtful that you're right. It's more likely that I'm right.
Can I explain? Basically, the care program approach documentation about your care plan doesn't describe your symptoms in any detail in any case. So even if the care plan had been sent immediately, it wouldn't have contained information regarding those issues, because that's not what's in care plans. That's one. And the second thing is that Dr. Qureshi doesn't do the care plan meetings or documentation or send things to you. It's the care coordinator, who looks like it was Ken Little at the time, is that right? The author of that fax. He is the person that would have filled in that documentation independently of Dr. Qureshi. So, there's no grounds to think that there was any conspiracy really there.
Okay. Periodically we had to see a consultant 2 or 3 times a year. That was one of the times we saw them. When we see the consultant, the GP has to be copied into that session.
Usually, yes.
But it's a accepted standard, it's even the law.
Yeah, well,
the GP wasn't copied in for years.
Usually, there are occasional circumstances where if no changes are made, no letters sent, because of I think there have been difficulties in the assessment service from time to time in terms of admin.
Okay, I accept it's all Ken's fault.
That rule has been relaxed, but generally speaking, you're correct, and certainly if any significant changes take place in people's medication plans or any other things that the GP needs to know about, they should receive a copy of the letter. And you should probably as well receive a copy, unless you've requested not to.
Okay. This is nonsense. Okay, this is the bit I'm interested in here. The whole thing about a care plan, I didn't sign up to one. There's no signature.
Yeah.
Where's the signature?
I don't know. There isn't any signature there.
There isn't, exactly. We don't sign up to it.
Yeah.
They're having us down on care plans we don't give a signature to, and the same we say things we don't say.
Okay. That's a separate concern from those you raised in your complaint, but it's, that's
It's all there in my mediation presentation.
But that's, you can't start off a new series of complaints. You have to start that process with.
No, I didn't do a new series of complaints. What I did was, you did a breakdown on what I said, and in a mediation presentation as to why I'm not happy with your breakdown, which is your response from the clarification meeting. The only way I could show that I wasn't happy with this is if I did a breakdown on this, which I did at the mediation presentation.
Well, you're breaking it down now, really, too. Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah, but it's all done on audio and email. The whole idea was you'd look in advance, and I wouldn't have to be doing this now.
I've looked at your emails, and I'm happy to respond to the concerns.
Yeah, and promise me you'll listen to the audio.
I will. I think we probably need to draw this process to a close.
Okay, we're going to have to get out of here very quickly. It's 10 past.
Yeah.
Let's see. Thoughts, review records. I'll tell you what. During the first admission, he responded to the affirmative when asked whether I heard voices or not. I don't know what that is. Anyhow,
that's just a quote from the Maudsley presentation.
Yeah, I think I interpret that. And do ideas pop into your head? Phelan referred to a number of instances of your experiencing of the delusion of belief. There is no contemporaneous records detailed on these beliefs in the clinical record. That you were the victim of harassment from neighbours and willing to entertain the possibility that they had appeared to be delusional beliefs but represented realistic concerns. In other words, I was messed about my neighbours, and when I said that to a previous psychiatrist, the psychiatrist said I was delusional, even though I've got a scar here.
I think he was willing to accept the possibility that that was so, and I don't think anybody discounts that as well.
I was knifed. And the reason I was knifed was because the social worker told the neighbours, by law, it was like almost a carpetbagger in the social sciences. By law, and he simplifies it. If you're not happy with someone living around you like this, you have a reason to be aggrieved. Now this is after my neighbours harassing me and me calling the socialists, calling them for help. When they saw that they could get away with anything, I got knifed. The next morning, instead of the police being called, someone presents himself as my social worker, who I never employed as my social worker, or my care coordinator. He took me, not that I won't even go into that, when he took me to the hospital, he told me 12 hours later that the reason my forehead is being prodded with a needle was to make sure that the blood clots. If your blood doesn't clot in 5 minutes, you're dead.
I'm not sure about that, but what I'm sure about is that
if your blood hasn't clotted 12 hours later, you're definitely dead.
I think I don't think we doubt that you had some serious harassment from neighbours.
I'll tell you what happened. The social worker covered up what the neighbours done.
Everything that's happened to you has been.
And he lied. And your social worker is thick and ignorant.
Yeah. I'm not suggesting that everything that's happened to you is just a delusion or anything like that. We think that
a description like that.
There have been
a description like that. Yeah. And when I was lying back and I was saying my neighbours are awful to me, and you never hear Irish accents in Hammersmith, he turned around, and instead of giving me support and going, yeah, he's in a foreign land, he goes, oh, just the other day I was sitting in the Broadway and talking to two of my friends who were native Gaelic speakers from Connemara. So when I was in the middle of having someone prod on my forehead with a needle, he was lying to the reason it was being done, and he was undermining what I said. Now, what's that got to do with being a social worker? And the only reason it happened is because the neighbours thought if they weren't happy with me living in the area, they could get away with it, and they did get away with it, because they had their man that was a social worker who was not my care coordinator at the time, and I never employed him as my care coordinator. Okay, that's nonsense. I'll tell you what, let's wind this up. I want to go to your office with you, and I want to show you the emails. And this is
I can't do that at the moment, I'm afraid.
I want you to respond to the emails, not to this.
Right.
Because
I can't respond in writing anymore. I think our
wait a second, there's a thing called a final response.
but what we can do is maybe have a look at those audios and maybe we can summarise. I mean, maybe Sophia could summarise the points and the issues really. Because you've been taking your notes at all? Or?
No, I haven't.
No,
but we can draft something.
We can draft something.
Do you know there's a fine art to dribble?
And summarise the points, the responses.
How long have you been doing this job for? 30, 40 years?
30 years plus, yeah.
I'd say you've learned a lot from your patients. There's a fine art to dribble. Oh.
But I'm not sure that we can do much more than that, maybe.
Okay, what I need is two things. Just to keep me happy, instead of wasting your time. Number one, all of this presentation and talking to a consultant like this is a form of, I don't know, it's almost DIY solution to something that requires professionalism, and it's unfair for me to come up with a solution of something. It's a load of nonsense. But I have to do it, because every time I went to make the it used to be that we had a PALS advocate, and if we had a problem, in 5 minutes he'd have a cosy chat with a psychiatrist, and we could change a psychiatrist or change a social worker, and there's no problem.
But you're not in touch with the mental health services at the moment, I understand.
Yeah, but the problem was years ago, our PALS advisors couldn't have the cosy chats we used to have, and they changed the complaint process, which is why I'm here in front of you.
Right. Okay. I mean, if you wanted to be in touch with mental health services, again, I'm sure, I'd be very happy to see you.
Perfectly happy not to be.
Arrange for you to see a
I'm
different
perfectly happy
person.
not to be. I don't want to be in contact.
Okay.
Okay, there's two things I need. I need a final response.
Well, I think we just have a summary of this meeting,
Yeah,
really.
that's right.
it.
Can I call that a final response? No,
I think we already had the response. I mean, we're not going to write another long report like that one.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you.
Maybe we have to summarise points of disagreement, and then if you want to pursue the complaint, I mean, presumably there's another stage to the complaint process.
Well, the way we get closure on this is that we were supposed to get closure on the first stage.
Yeah.
Because what you said, I was happy with. And if I'm not happy with it, I say why I'm not happy with it.
Yeah.
And what you think of me not being happy with it, and that's the final stage.
Right.
Now, to do that, you have to put that in writing.
Well, we can put that in, which is basically would be a summary of this meeting.
A summary of what happened today,
Summary
what
of this
your points
meeting.
were.
Okay, and that's called a final response.
Right.
Now, here's the thing that I need in the final response. Are you happy with your previous response that everything in it holds up?
Yes.
Yes, every single thing.
Yes.
And do you think there's any substance to the mediation presentation points I put together, both in print and audio?
I think there's a point you make in them, and there are certain, you raise, for example, possible misunderstandings of the figures, on diagnoses of different kinds of conditions. Certainly, probably we'd expect a lot more people to suffer from autism and Asperger's syndrome in Hammersmith and Fulham and Hounslow and in Ealing than those figures suggest. But they're not meant to be. Those figures are not meant to be epidemiological, studies. They're not meant to be evidence of the prevalence of those conditions in the base population. They're just the numbers of people that the trust sees really with those conditions. And as I say, so many people with autism and Asperger's syndrome don't have any contact with mental health services. They get help from social services and the voluntary sector, and they don't darken the door of the mental health services at all, really. So that's why you don't see such a large proportion of people with those conditions on the books of the Mental Health Trust.
Okay, that's quite a spiel.
Okay.
Okay, so anyhow, back to basics. Can I get a final response?
Yeah, sure.
Yes,
I think that's fair enough. And can you take on board the mediation presentation that I sent you in advance, hoping that I wouldn't be here? See, the reason...
I mean, I've read all the emails that you've sent. I think the only thing that we haven't looked at is these audios, which I don't think were attached to the, maybe they got lost somewhere, but I will see what I can do. I'll find out from Susie.
I need you to give me a contact email. It doesn't have to be your email.
Well, I think it's Susie. You have to go through Susie.
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sake, I've already gone through it.
Susie's the only person you can go through for this, really.
She's
Okay,
responsible for the
so you're going to do a
text.
final response and you're going to take on board the audio commentary.
Yeah, but I'll have a look and see if I can understand it and so on.
Okay, so let me speak, because when I get things clear in my head, I'm pretty okay. The idea of doing this electronically was to cut out the stage of me meeting you here. Because
I think we've made all
well,
the
look,
points
could you let the
you-
story tear? Because I respect for you, and when you shake your head and you go into your professor lecturing, I let you talk, even if I understand or don't understand what you're saying, and I don't interrupt.
Fine, fair enough.
The theory of me sending the email with the mediation critique, which is the presentation, and the audio commentary to explain each point was such that I would be looking at your report and I'd be using a dictaphone to do this. I'm not happy with this on this point, I'm not happy with this on that point. And then I get you to look at the points you weren't happy with. And with an earpiece, hearing on each point as an audio commentary to explain each written point as to why I wasn't happy. For you to say why you weren't happy with that, so you'd go into a dictaphone and go blah blah blah, and that would be sent to my GP, and he'd have his dictaphone,
We'll go to you, really.
and then it will come back to me.
GP's not involved in the process.
Well, I wanted to involve someone else.
Well, if
So
you
the
want to,
idea was
we
that the
speak to Susie
GP
about
would
it.
bring in expertise
Right.
that would justify the complaint instead of fucking rabbiting on in front of you like this.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the idea was a consultant would look at the mediation presentation with the audio, and he'd use his dictaphone, and my GP would say whether or not, using common sense, he's happy with consultants, whether or not each point holds up. After already hearing my commentary and does this, and then I get sent everything in the post in the form of a final response, and it's all done in the circle of two doctors using the dictaphones, because you've been using these things for years.
The GP's not involved in the process, really.
Like, I'm involved in anyhow, I don't think you want to
But,
be involved.
certainly we'll make a response to you in relation to this meeting, and I will have a look at those audios if I can get them from Susie, and we'll have a listen. And see if there are any additional points we can respond to.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, the idea was to alter the way in which you carry out these complaint procedures such that at this stage I don't have to be coming in here doing this.
Okay.
Okay, that's
All
what the
right,
idea.
finish up now.
But I couldn't do it that way. I'd like to beforehand. Okay, here goes. Please find below the outline of the complaint. Alright, I'll just go through each point and then I'll ask you what you're going to do about it, and that way we can get it done quickly. Okay, so I'm going through a complaint from Joanne Morton, or M-O-R-T-O-N, at Look Ahead Housing, sent to Emma, E-M-M-A Lucas, on my behalf. A complaint that I made and instructed her to do, and my name is Ronan, R-O-N-A-N, Blaney, B-L-A-N-E-Y. And the complaint is a very simple complaint. It's in 5 points. The first point is, Mr. Blaney explained he was served notice at the same time that he received a re-diagnosis. Mr. Blaney explained that his former diagnosis of schizophrenia has been assessed and that his re-diagnosis of Asperger's led to a notice being served. Now, that is a very serious accusation. What do you intend to do to look at that?
Okay. About it on the notice served, and the notice that man. What made you think that?
You're here to clarify it. What made me think there was a re-diagnosis? The actual 11th, I got re-diagnosed.
Yeah.
And I got a letter from the Maudsley Hospital on the hold on here, on the 21st of July. Now, that wasn't taken to be the full report. The full report from the Maudsley came out, I have it here, on 30th of November 2012, and it was sent out by post, and it arrived on Tuesday around the 5th.
And when did they do the?
When the actual notice of eviction came about, it was handed to me on the 5th, the same day the Maudsley officially gave me a 20-page report. Yes, June the 11th.
June. Yeah,
June the 11th.
Yeah, it's just to help me the chronology. And you received the letter on 30th of November.
I received the letter at the end of July, but I actually received the Maudsley report, the full report, that's 20 pages in length. I received this, as you can see, it's written here, on the 30th of November.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that, the 30th of November, but the first letter was at the end of July.
On the same day, I also got dropped as a WLMHT patient, and I got a notice of eviction. It was all done very quickly on the same day, and I don't believe in coincidences that are this big. One at the same time possible. 3 things at the same time on the same day, although probable, highly improbable and highly unlikely, and I believe this should be looked into.
Okay. What would you like to be done on this? Notice, only a notice, it says to enforce it is a long process that would ought to do it. There is no plan to do it. Yeah. Okay. The notice is worrying you, and the timing of it, yeah, I can suspend it if that's a big worry.
Okay. There are several possible reasons for the notice being given out. The number one is that the wrongdoing up to this point in time was so wrong they just wanted to sweep it under the carpet and get me out quickly. But the alternative that's less serious, which is they just wanted to help me and engage with the service, I have in writing a letter from Look Ahead Housing on the 14th of January 2013, and it says here, the reason behind the notice was to prompt you to engage with the service. The reason why a notice to evict was to make me deal with them, when legally I don't have to deal with them. The reason behind such a heavy legal action was to heavily encourage me to do something. Now this, in my mind, is a threat to engage in a care service that I do not want to engage with, that I have to volunteer for, and as such, threatening someone with eviction for lack of engaging with a care service is a lack of voluntary agreement. And to me this threat is very serious, and that's the lesser reason behind them giving me the notice of eviction. Now, the lesser reason isn't itself very serious.
Ronan, you have a tenancy agreement. All residents.
Okay, we're diverting. I believe we've looked at this, and he knows what the full details are, and he doesn't. I'm only here to help him clarify the investigation and how to find information. And I've shown him the information. It's on file at Look Ahead, and he can find it. So we can go on now to point number 2.
Yeah. Can I, just before we pass to number 2...
Put into the community, into unsupported housing. I was moved into Look Ahead under very high priority on the PAT application. They did not tell me about it. The PAT application expired within a year. I should have been moved out in a few weeks. I wasn't. They kept harrying me into a care plan that I wouldn't agree to, and I was told before coming in by Ken Little, social worker, that they wouldn't go near me or put me into care, and that I'd be out in a few weeks and living in a flat independently in the community, local to where I live with my Asperger's syndrome. That's important, the routine. And where I lived, local to where I lived, would not be a place unsuitable for someone as delicate as me as a council block like they would before. It would just be an ordinary, good quality piece of housing in the community. In other words, a 2 up, 2 down around Brackenbury Village or around off Hammersmith Road or something, where it's just a dwelling like any other dwelling, probably under the organisation or whatever you call it of a housing association.
So basically what you'd like is that, I think we'll come back to this. One other point you have.
I have to clarify this here. What I said was move into the community unsupported, independent. Supported basically means that there are strings attached and I'm under
care that I haven't volunteered for. It's almost a roundabout way of me agreeing that a condition of me leaving to live independently in the community does I do it in care, which is a contradiction in terms. I want to live unsupported, independent in the community, and I want to live in a dwelling similar to a private dwelling. I was told when I moved in here I would not be in a 2 up, 2 down, and I was in very high priority when I was moved in here. But that path application, they did not tell me about it, and it closed, and they let it close without telling me about it. And if they acted on the conditions I moved in here, I'd have been out in a couple of weeks or a month, and there'd be no waiting list, because I was under such high priority, because it was a police that moved me in here quickly for my own safety. You know, so we moved out quickly for my own safety. That the priority alone meant a lack of a waiting list and a lack of how are they going to assess me. I was on very high priority under that path application, and they allowed it to expire to my detriment.
Okay, thank you for that, and noted that about moving into community. No, it's okay. You know, I have made appointments, so I have all the time for you. Don't worry.
Point number 2: Mr. Blaney is unhappy about measures taking regard to the repair of his cooker. He received a letter stating that the repairs can only be made if his cooker is cleaned. Mr. Blaney believes that he is required to submit to ongoing monitoring of the cleanliness of his cooker, and he feels that this...
I understand you suppose it is so dark on it. What I can help with...
Oh, okay, let me stop you there, please. Note on this particular point, my community support worker at the time at WLMHT, Nicola Wakeham, examined my cooker after they said it was dirty, and at the time, and she found it to be completely clean. John Hunt phoned up WLMHT and was making odd comments about the cleanliness of my cooker and having people come in each night to support me in the cleaning of my cooker and stand around my flat. Now, the cooker was clean. She verified that what was said about it being unclean was untrue, and she also noted and put in my file with WLMHT and brought to their communication the oddness of John Hunt's phone call.
Ronan, can I offer you something?
I was offered Mosaic and CRT to help me clean my flat in the past, and they did not say the engineer would come in once and clean it. They wanted ongoing support, which was Mosaic or CRT. Now, I've had bad experiences with them in the past, and that's why I did not want them coming in each night.
Okay. And what I can offer you is this one-off help you to cooker so that the engineer...
I am not mentally ill. I've been undiagnosed. I have cleaned my cooker. Now, I do not want anyone coming in cleaning my cooker, and if there's conditions attached to my cooker being repaired, I would rather the repair not to go ahead. Okay, that's it.
So
that's number 2. Mr. Blaney believes that a court transcript is not a true reflection of events. I was not able to determine if look-ahead staff gave statements or whether it was the evidence of CMHT. This means that while I was in a psychiatric hospital, written evidence was submitted about my misbehaviour. I did not have access to that written evidence, and I'd like to know if look-ahead contributed to that written evidence. I'd like to know if it was the evidence of CMHT, and I would like to know, I can't do too much in this because it's too much in-house, so I would need Joseph here to clarify and tell me what he can do to look into this point.
I understand.
Joseph here has a problem understanding the point that's in the complaint. From what he says and what he understands, shows that he needs help in understanding. When on the 29th of February 2012, at a tribunal hearing at Charing Cross Hospital, written evidence was submitted about me in the building misbehaving and in the community misbehaving. Now, what was put down there, what was mentioned, was untrue, and I can't repeat what was mentioned. But that written evidence, what Joseph needs to find out about this point, if he obtains this written evidence, it will give him the answer he needs for his investigation. And I will give Joseph now a copy of the court report with the written evidence referred to, so he can seek it out, which will help him fully investigate the report in a way that justifies the complaint. and this is his clarification as how to get the information.
Thank you for the clarification. Now, not aware of it, but I'm happy to look into that. This is my job as investigator. Copy of that, I'll be grateful.
Yes, I do, and I will look for it now, and if I can't find it, remind me at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on.
I will give a copy at the end of the meeting.
That's fine, thank you.
Point number 3.
Is it number 4?
Yes, number 4. The cooker was done. Mr. Blaney believes that Look Ahead were responsible for the double prescribing of his medication. He believes this to be a deliberate act taking out for financial gain to Look Ahead.
Okay.
I may be wrong on that.
Yeah. Now, Joseph Haptund does not prescribe. Same time, I think severity were, I think, raised by once you became eating surplus medication pharmacy for disposal. Now you're
for clarification for Joseph, because I believe Joseph is a good man. He's just going along what he's told, and what he's been told is inaccurate. I have always self-medicated, and in all the self-medicating, the medication I'm on when I'm off section, I do not have to take it if I don't want to legally, but that's nonsense. No, don't put anything down. What I would like to say is the medication that I was supposed to take when I was self-medicating, and they knew it, they were taking medication into the building and picking it up on my behalf, and also they were handing medication out to me in the hallway. Now, they were picking up the medication on my behalf from a separate pharmacy to Richwood Gate, and I got a copy here in physical evidence. It says 352 Goathook Road.
it's delivery. They don't collect it. You see,
It's delivered here.
That's what
Yes.
I said, because
While I already had one from Richwood Gate. Now they knew I was self-medicating, and they continued the delivery to here. That is either bad, inefficient administration, or for some other reason they might have thought they were still prescribing it to me on paper. Either way, they were handing out medication to me in the hallway under camera for months at a time, and they did it to other people as well. So the idea that they don't hand out medication to us and stand over us when we're taking our medication is not true. Joseph doesn't work after 6, so we can say he wasn't there after 6 when it happened.
clearly here the evidence says that it is dated 31st January 2000. Normally, let me ask you this: where would you like? Changed it, and they were I'm wrong. Please do correct me. Yeah. Where would you?
I do not have a care plan with Look Ahead. There is no reason for Look Ahead to be handing me medication under their care, and for them to say when they're handing me the medication, they're not prescribing it to me or giving it to me. They're giving it to me, and they're taking my medication. They can only do this under a care plan, and no care plan was agreed to. When asked how Mr. Blaney would like these issues to be resolved, he stated that he had no faith in the management team, and he would like to be given priority to move out to independent accommodation within a month or a short period of time. I'm copying Mr. Blaney has agreed, so that he is aware I've passed on this complaint for him and verified that my recording is an accurate outline of his complaint, and I agree it is. So, what are you going to do to move me on?
We covered a bit this, and your PATH application form was confirmed. I'm in contact with PATH. My understanding is your application was submitted to PATH. Now, what they had asked was they requested purpose. We provided them that. Okay, you want me to? This is about Olympic. I think they were inviting brought it through the actual. Because we've got some photos. Somebody who actually took part. Can I ask you, Ronan, why did your ID? They had requested
outside the complaint.
Okay, I'm now looking for what I said I'd look for earlier. The court report.
Can we stay on uninvited then?
I will answer this in due course.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I am now handing Joseph a copy of the court report for the 29th of February 2012, where written evidence was given, and there's a question as to whether or not look ahead provided were included in that written evidence, on which I was kept in the hospital, and there was an attempt to put and it had an effect on my diagnosis. Now, that written evidence on which they based that decision, I did not have access to that written notice, and I need to know whether or not Look Ahead had input, or not that notice, that written evidence. I need to know whether or not Look Ahead had input into that written evidence, because the written evidence contained a lie. Dr. Walsh read out that it said in the written evidence that I was doing behaviour that was basically criminal, but I've never been before a court of law on any criminal charges, and I need access to that. In order for John to help him in his investigation, he must obtain this written evidence so he can defend, or he can answer the question that I've put together on that point in the complaint. The point of the complaint is, where's the thing about the written evidence? On point number 3, Mr. Blaney believes that a court transcript is not a true reflection of events. I was not able to determine if Look Ahead staff gave statements or whether it was the evidence of CMHT. Now, at that court hearing, the written evidence on which they based their decision, on that written evidence, that has to be accessed so as to find out whether or not Look Ahead gave statements that was included in that written evidence, and see what the truth of those statements is.
Yeah. Ronan, can you show me the...
this is the end of the... Oh yes, one last thing. Okay. I'll give you a copy of this.
But happy to look into that.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, one last thing. In the time I was here and under your care, when I was categorised as being schizophrenic, why did you think I was schizophrenic? How did it come about that in your experience of dealing with me over time that you believed I was paranoid schizophrenic, especially when I may have been categorised as simply schizophrenic when I came in here?
It was in non-CMHT by a path team. That's how it works. That don't do the assessment ourselves. One, we are not qualified to do that because it's the doctors who would...
Okay, I believe Joseph has been of help. The last bit is just basically a caveat to the complaint. There's strictly nothing to do with it. And basically, the phone is ringing. But basically what this means is that when I was here, I was re-diagnosed as autistic. And it's unlikely that I'm the only person at West London Mental Health who's also autistic that's been improperly diagnosed. Now, I'd like to know what Look Ahead... Last bit. We've got to get this done quickly because it's costing me money. I would like to know, since I was wrongly diagnosed with schizophrenia and re-diagnosed as Asperger's, and it's highly unlikely that I'm the only person, in mental health, they look out for this according to guidelines, and the guideline I believe that they're supposed to look out for it under is Royal College Council Report CR 136 Autistic Spectrum in Adults. Now, I understand I'm asking a lot, but I'd like to know what you've done under this Royal College report, since you do the work of mental health, in looking out for mental illness, how you incorporated this into your policy.
Now, all the residents we have, or yourself, you have been the client of this. It's not as that you're here.
Thank you very much for your information. I would like to give you the report, but this would involve you in my care, and that was not a condition of me moving in. I would, however, like if Olu could be the person to look out for autism or autistic spectrum disorder, and if she could be versed in CR 136. Locally in the area, it is recommended in the CR 136 Council Report on Autistic Spectrum in Adults that there is a local champion or an organisation champion. I think that Olu definitely has the skills of subtlety, and she also has a postgraduate degree, which means she's educated to high standard to take on board the CR136, and I would ask that she gets to read this and is the person who looks out for autistic spectrum in this project and makes any recommendations that Joseph might need.
I understand that you want to
I'm very happy here, and I hope Olu enjoys herself with the CR136, because I know she likes to do something positive, and she likes to use the brain that God gave her, and she's very highly qualified, and she's underused. And I'm appreciative of John putting to Olu that she can take on board the CR136 Royal College Council Report. Just hold that there so I can hear it. It says here, you complained you were served with a notice following your re-diagnosis of Asperger's. Previously your diagnosis indicated you as having schizophrenia. It says here you looked into my complaint, and then it says down here, as part the project provides support to those who require support to those who you provide it. And then it says here, each of us working towards a support plan, the association can take steps to end the tenancy. Now here's what the problem I have is, the support plan is like a care plan, a CPA, and since I've moved in here, I was told I'd be out in a few weeks because I was a vulnerable adult, a victim of crime, and I had a secure tenancy, and if anyone from this building even came into my building, they'd lose my job, and I wouldn't have to enter into a care plan agreement. Now, I never entered into a care plan agreement, and breaking the terms of a care plan agreement subjects me to eviction. I cannot be subjected to eviction to the terms of a care plan agreement because that agreement isn't there. What have you got to say to that?
Ronan, you were referred to us by Path Team, similar to other residents who were referred to us. You were not referred to us only just for a few weeks. We have no record of that. We are aware that you had your tenancy in general needs, you had difficulties.
Okay,
and
I can see what's happening is you're dribbling along what you think the facts are, and I presented something to you and you've ignored it. I was giving a notice of eviction according to not going along with a support plan. That support plan that keys into the tenancy agreement doesn't apply to me because I never opted for that support plan. That's number one. Number two, please let me finish. This is very, very important. Number two, you said according to the PATH application. The PATH application was for a vulnerable adult that was a knifing victim to be moved on quickly. Now, the social worker never moved me on. You never moved me on. It was allowed to expire. The PATH plan I had required no care plan agreement or support plan. I was being in and out very quickly because of my vulnerability in being in danger in the previous place I lived in, not my vulnerability, and I need support in my daily living. So you allowed that PATH application to expire, and I didn't even know it existed. Why didn't you tell me it existed, and why did you allow it to expire?
All referrals here are people who have support needs. Yeah? And you were referred to us on that basis. Yeah? Hence, we wanted you to engage with the Gold Hook Road.
Okay, we'll end this point here because he's going according to his idea of the type of PATH client I was and moved in under, and that's different to the actual PATH application I had. And I who allowed it to expire. He didn't even tell me about it. Okay, here goes. Next bit. I want to get this over with quickly. You expressed your unhappiness about measures taken regarding the repair of your cooker, that you received a letter stating that the repair could only be done to your cooker if your cooker was cleaned. And I didn't want ongoing monitoring to support me every day in cleaning my cooker. Now, here's the problem I put to you. You carry out weekly health and safety checks, etc. My cooker that you said wasn't clean, actually was, because my community support worker looked at it, she verified it was clean, and John gave an odd phone call to look ahead about my cooker being unclean when it was clean. This is mental illness, looking at a clean cooker, saying it's unclean, and you're going to send people into my flat each night to help me clean my cooker. My cooker was clean, it's still clean. You can't be coming up with excuses like that not to carry out repairs or attach in some type of support team into my home that say I allowed it when I didn't allow it, and some excuse over the cleaning of the cooker. I put to you that my cooker was clean.
Ronan, if you read a bit down the letter, what it says is, we are required to do health and safety check. And I said that we're happy to do the health and safety check jointly, the time and dates which is suitable to you, you know.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, so, you know, we're trying to meet you halfway, and how we can do, you know, what we are supposed to do, because we're expected to do health and safety checks. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Here goes again. There seems to be a unifying theme going through here of him dribbling on about support, attached to me being in here under a path plan. Stop. Basically, the so-called support would help me coming in each week to do my health and safety checks as part of supporting me with the type of client I am. There's two groups here. There is the Housing Association, Look Ahead Property, and then there's a care group. Now, the care group shouldn't come near me, and every time they come near me, it's under the justification of their concern and care and the care plan. Now, two things. Number one, in the absence of the fact that I'm a client to this care group, I come under the terms of the tenancy. I get the same rights as any other tenant. Coming into my home every week to check out my cooker and to check out my fire alarm, doing weekly checks is wrong. By law, the gas gets checked once every 2 years. I get a receipt for the checking of the gas. Do excuse me. Stop, don't interrupt me. I get a receipt for the checking of the gas once every 2 years, and by law they can't come more than that to ensure that's not used as a way of harassing clients by the landlord. Now, you don't get your gas checked every 2 weeks or every 2 months. I get it checked every few weeks, even though I've taken the receipt. And by law, as a tenant, you're not supposed to come back for 2 years. But you get around it by saying, well, I'm not a tenant, I'm a client under a care plan. You're a care plan group, I'm a tenant to the property group. The unifying theme of coming into my home under a care plan is wrong because I haven't agreed to the care plan. What have you got to say to that? The care plan doesn't exist, and at best, it's an ongoing thing.
Ronan, this place is supported housing. This is not general needs. You used to live in general needs where it is housing and no support provided, whereas here is supported housing, support housing. So we do both, yeah? As Look Ahead, as the landlord, we have a responsibility, and as a support provider as well. Yeah.
Okay. The only way they could get us into a place like this under very high support. High support usually means less liberty. In other words, you're almost putting yourself into a prison when you lose all that liberty. Now, nobody would agree to this voluntarily. So what they do is, once we're in here, they start knocking on our doors, and we have to agree to this. And there's nothing, well, they can't make us do it. And then all of a sudden, out of the smallest thing, all of a sudden, there's a cosy chat or something. We lose our liberty. We're in the hospital. One way or the other, they get us in the hospital in the first few months we're here. And in order to get out and get our liberty, what happens is we have to agree to a care plan to exit. Now, here's the problem. When they do a sanity test, those sanity tests, they always lock us up on lies. And what happens is, do you hear voices? No, I don't hear voices. Are you in a happy place? Yes, I'm in a happy place. Then they ask you a trick question at the end of the sanity test. The trick question is, are you agreeable or disagreeable with the care we may provide? All this time they're ratcheting up the stress. A person thinking the test is over is in a state of uncertainty, which is disagreeable. And thinking the test is over, are you going to be disagreeable with any decision we might make? They think that's ridiculous. And in a state of uncertainty, in that psychological state, they always answer disagreeable. But we have learned this trick over time, and with my Asperger's, I'm very good at being objective. I said agreeable, I passed the sanity test, I was locked up in a lie. Now, all of this about coming in here under support plan, and once you're in here, everybody comes in with their eyes open under support plan is a lie. Because everyone who comes in here within a short period gets sectioned under a lie. And then we have to come out with the forced plan forced on us. The fact that it's forced on us means there's a lack of agreement, which means those support plans are illegal. And you're taking people hostage, and they're also committing medical assault.
Okay.
I was re-diagnosed with Asperger's.
Okay, Ronan. My understanding from what you're saying is you can you let me finish first?
I don't know what's going on here.
Okay, you finish then first.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what I'm saying is you're interested just in housing and not the support, or as you call it, the care package that has nothing to do with you, say. Then let's do something about your housing, whether to find you another accommodation. We talk and liaise with the council to find.
I tried to talk to the gentleman behind me, John, the other day, and he said it's put me in with Habentech. Habentech is disability under a care plan. Now that's strings attached again. It seems to be a care group that's always trying to put you into property and key in a care element whereby it promotes, it's all part of the care industry. Now here's the thing, on leaving this place, I wanted to leave as quickly as I could when I get in. In this place, they're jumping for joy at a chance for us to move on and be independent. That being the case, how do you answer that my PATH application, when I first moved in, as a vulnerable adult, not as somebody necessarily with schizophrenia or dangerous, that my PATH application was allowed to expire and I wasn't told about it. If you wanted to move me on when I was under high priority, you'd have told me about the PATH application and you would have moved me on. You didn't. You allowed it to expire. Why did you allow it to expire and not tell me about it?
There is no expiry for this. There is no expiry. What is important is if you engage with staff, staff will support you with your housing, with your move on. Now, okay, I understand you don't want the support, that's fine. Then you're interested for the move on, independent living. That's if you let me finish. Independent living, that's fine. Then a proper application is done, then you engage with staff, you provide any...
Okay, that's not what happened. We're going around in circles. There was a PATH application and you didn't move me on. And then when the PATH application expired, you were complaining about me not you were complaining about me not moving on when I had a chance, and if you really wanted to move me on, you'd went along with that application. Here goes the third point. You indicated that you believe that a court transcript is a true reflection of events, and that you were not able to determine if look-ahead staff gave statements or whether it was the evidence of CMT. That you do not believe court transcripts are a true reflection of events. What happened basically was, once I was falsely committed under a lie at GP surgery, whereby I passed the sanity test and I said I was agreeable, and then they said I was disagreeable. I can do it really quickly for the benefit of the people around me. What happens is, when you say you're disagreeable and they leave after the sanity test, they immediately have their answer and commit you there and then. The fact that they went away for an hour and had to think about everything I said, and then came back and said I was disagreeable, that decision took an hour. If I was actually disagreeable, they wouldn't have come back an hour later and it would have been instant. The reason it took them an hour is because I didn't say I was disagreeable. I was committed under a lie. I had my liberty taken away, I was taken hostage and was medically assaulted and all the rest of it. Now here's the thing about it. Once I was in there was evidence given to... Okay, I'll stop it here. What's it say here? When I met you at Look Ahead, you gave me a copy of Page of Tribunal report. Oh yeah, this is easy. Oh my God, this is ridiculous. Staff. The report includes staff from Look Ahead, and the report at this tribunal includes staff from Look Ahead, and no oral or written submissions were made by Look Ahead I can therefore confirm that Look Ahead staff did not make any oral or written submissions to any tribunal regarding you or in any way connected with you. In other words, no information came to the tribunal about me living here. When I was at the tribunal, it said I was misbehaving here. On the Dr. Jolly complaint, report into the complaint I put, he said I was misbehaving here. It was also said that I was going around taking people hostage. Now, I can't say anything about that, but on the court report, whatever the hell you want to call it, the tribunal report, it said I was misbehaving in the building, which was an account of what was said at the tribunal. For it to be said that I was misbehaving in the building on written evidence from the tribunal, and for it to be said there and then that day, meant that information about me misbehaving in the building was communicated from here. They didn't get it from ours. So you were telling them that I was misbehaving in the building and that it affected my losing my liberty. So for you to say no is a lie because it's written on a court report, what have you got to say to that?
Ronan, I have put it in black and white in this letter to you that we have not submitted any oral or written information about you to the tribunal. We haven't.
Okay, I won't take your word for it. What I'll do is I'll look at the tribunal report, and on the tribunal report it mentions I was misbehaving in the building, and on the Dr. Jolly, whatever you want to, have you heard that name like that, Dr. Jolly? On the Dr. Jolly, the senior consultant at Charing Cross Hospital, on the actual response to my complaint, he's actually said in that I was misbehaving in the building, etc. Now, information about me in the building was given. They had to ask you for you to give them that information. The information was given. There's no question because it's written in the actual court report. And I was there at the time and I remember it being said. If you have a problem with that, take it up with the magistrate and take it up with the senior consultant. And that's contradictory to what you're saying. Take it up with the magistrate, but it happens to be true. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you're saying otherwise, but it's written down in the court report. I can say what you want. I'm just going to read this out.
Yeah. Well, I have put it in writing for you, Ronan.
It is written. Anything.
It is in black and white.
Okay. I'm sure in your mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
If the court paper, the tribunal paper, if it says that Look Ahead provided this information, you show me, and
I could do it right now. I could do it right now.
Yeah, because I don't think there will be any tribunal documentation.
Okay, that's enough. You're going from the specific to the general to dilute things. So here goes. When asked how you would like the above issue to be resolved, you stated you'd no faith in the management team and you'd like to be given priority to move out into independent accommodation within a month. And let's see what it says here. Engage. Oh, yeah, here you are again. It says that you were sad about how I felt, but in order to resolve it, you'd be more than happy for me to meet with me again and for me to engage with you supporting me. In other words, that's you knocking on my door trying to push more care plans on me. I was first came into the building, you forcefully dispensed medication to me. And you said you don't dispense medication. There's cups out there, proof that you do dispense medication. Even when I was allowed to self-medicate, you took my repeat prescription and you still went to the chemist. The thing being that you receive the medication every day in the office and you bully me into having to be there and take it with you, and somehow this is part of some support plan, or somehow by you forcing me to take the medication that you're given to me, you're caring for me and therefore you've involved yourself in my care and I volunteered for it. I never volunteered for it. And when you were taking that medication from the second chemist while I was medicating from the first, that medication was dispensed outside the law. That was a legal dispensing of drugs. Basically, by law, that's drug dealing.
Ronan, when you say you, are you referring to me as Joseph?
There's different types of you. There's you plural, there's you singular.
Okay, or maybe...
You singular basically means you. You plural means you collectively,
well,
you as a group. You can
one
say you as a group.
One, obviously, I haven't...
Grammar.
Normally, I don't deal directly myself with the medication. But the most important is you have the right to take or not to take medication. because, nobody is forced to take medication, even if you speak to your care coordinator or the doctors.
That's in theory. If that's the case, why are you forcing me to take it each? Well, it's on camera. People are in the hallway, and you make us take it, and if you don't, you report us, and people are in fear of losing their liberty. And by having us on camera taking the medication, moved in here. I was moved in as a stabbing victim. There's a scar. And basically, I was treated as dangerous, and when I came in here I was treated as very dangerous. I subsequently got re-diagnosed with having Asperger's. Now, since I was moved in as a vulnerable adult by the police because I was in danger, to be moved into a similar place of a similar standard and not lose out on the legal status of my tenancy compared to what I had before. I previously lived with a secure tenancy in an unfurnished flat for 15 years. Now, when I came in here, I was taught out of a secure tenancy. I got some type of short-hold tenancy that wasn't what I was promised. I was supposed to be moved on quickly to secure tenancy, and I was supposed to be vulnerable and not be anywhere unsafe. I stopped someone coming into the building. She said she was with a company called Circle, CIRCLE, and they're a type of management group that monitor ankle tags. Also, the person next door shouted that he was in prison for 6 months. I was a vulnerable adult with no history of violence, with no criminal record. Vulnerable, moved into a place of safety, but moved into a place of equal terms of what my tenancy was before, under the police path move. Now, when I came in here, it's not a place of safety because the people here, the client group, they're wearing ankle tags and they got prison records. I was told nobody here was dangerous by John. The fact that people have ankle tags and they're monitored by Circle, well, they don't wear the ankle tags, the decoration. I'm in a place that I was supposed to be put into for safety, and it is clear and obvious that it's not a place of safety, and that's not paranoia. What are you going to say to that?
I think you were aware that this place was supported housing. You wanted similar tenancy the way you were there in general needs. This is not general needs.
Okay, what I was aware of and what I thought when I came in here, that's my mind, and he's not a mind reader.
I'm afraid
and I don't know, he's talking around in circles, and then he's saying something is written, so it must be true, and what must be true is written is a lie. He's written that he knows to be untrue, and I can't understand this man. But thank you very much for the mediation meeting. Oh yes, you have to say what this is. Could you say that this is a mediation meeting, or it's a meeting that is a criticism of the response you gave to my complaint?
Yeah, well, thank you for coming for this. Want me to hold it? Okay. This is a mediation meeting that was arranged between Ronan, myself, and there are 3 people present here.
And your name is?
Yeah, and my name is Yusuf Habtu, and I'm the area manager for Lockhart for Mental Health Services. And I'm happy to have this meeting with Ronan to address any issues that we have. Yeah.
What is the meeting addressing?
Yeah. Well, the meeting is addressing some of the concerns, issues that you have in my reply to the complaints you had, and you have a copy of the letter with yourself.
Oh yeah, that thing there. Okay, I don't want to hear about that. It's trying to make you feel important or something.
I want to record you this good.
Okay, this meeting is for the look ahead complaint that I made. Basically, there's no get a reference number on it or something.
There's a page missing here.
This
Oh, yeah.
page.
This is in relation to complaints made by Ronan in January, and this is the outcome of the complaints investigation made in February, and a response was sent to Ronan on 28th of February.
Okay, all right then.
Yeah.
Okay, now that we've had the complaint was made, the report was given by Joseph. I've come here for the dialogue into how I was happy and unhappy with it. The next stage, the final stage, is that I get a final response. Now, this means due to the self-regulatory setup that Looker has had, when that happens, they've gone through the whole process and the self-regulatory process will be exhausted. So Look Ahead will have done what they can and I'll have done what I can, and I eagerly await the final response. May I ask you, Joseph, when you're going to do a response to the concerns I've raised here? When are you going to put it in writing?
I think we're going in circle here, Ronan. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Now, this is a response to exactly the concerns you raised, and it's addressed here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I think what's important, Ronan, is this is how we move forward.
Okay, I understand.
How we move forward, we seriously take your concern about your housing. You want to move on. Come on, let's focus on that and how we take that forward. Yeah, and London Syrians are here. Yeah?
Okay.
They will be taking over from 1st of June.
Okay, I understand it.
Yeah?
Since London,
how they can support you with your housing from the 1st of June. Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay. So, Joseph, I'd like to ask you, the final response is simply a written document as to what I've said to you here, from what you can remember, how you've looked at what I've said about me, for example, saying that there isn't a care plan agreement and you'd no right to put it on me, and that you're to move me on without any move me on according to the original path application. Let the story tear. What this basically means is as follows: when you move me on in a few weeks, you reopen the original path application with no strings attached to care plans, whereas to be moved on under police emergency. I'd like that path application reopened. I'd like you to address that in your final response.
I cannot promise you something I won't deliver.
Okay, what's happening here is where...
Yeah, I won't say something that I won't be able to deliver, yeah? And I won't say that I will be moving you in a few weeks' time, yeah? That does not depend on me. We don't have general needs where we can move you to, yeah? It all depends on the council. Yeah.
Okay. I understand. Okay, I can understand. I'm not demanding, but it would be desirable if the move on I had was a path application that expired. Now, before to expire, it expired because nobody made any movement on it. For it to expire, it expired unfairly. In the name of fairness, I think it's only right that it should be reopened. What I really want is for you just to say to me that you're going to do a final response. You're going to write up a letter on this meeting and give it to me.
Now, there is very little time in terms of what me, as Look Ahead, we can do for you. Now, the most important thing is how we work with the London Sirenians, how they will be supporting you with your housing. They're here, yeah, and they can see what your concern, what your priority is.
Nothing to do with the complaint. All I want you
No.
All I want you to do is end this meeting by saying you're going to send a written response to this meeting. That's all I want.
I'm happy just to write to acknowledge that we met and we addressed, reviewed, revisited the issues that you raised previously. I'm happy to do that.
Just promise me to send me something in writing in the next day or two, and I'm happy.
Yeah, that's fine. I can do that.
That's fine. Thank you very much. The self-regulatory system, when I get that written response, will have exhausted.